It takes a considerable amount of time to transform normal humans into Space Marines. They receive implants known as gene seed, which transform their bodies and give them superhuman abilities, making them capable of spitting corrosive venom, absorbing the memories of the dead by eating their flesh, darkening their skin to protect it from radiation, and operating for long periods without sleep by switching off parts of their brains at a time. Recruits are subjected to psycho-indoctrination and conditioning, strengthening their resolve and honing them into dedicated and merciless warriors. Not all recruits survive the brutal training, of course, and not all are accepted. Those who fail may be lucky to even survive, for many trials take the form of ritual combat, the hunting of a great beast, or the performance of incredibly dangerous feats of strength and bravery. At the conclusion of the trials, those few aspirants that have been deemed worthy are taken away, invariably never to see their people again. Once accepted, the young aspirants become neophytes and begin their regimen of training and biological enhancement. Each chapter has its own traditions regarding the initiation of the recruit into its legends and secrets. This process often runs parallel to the biogenetic treatments the neophyte must undergo. As the physical transformation proceeds, spiritual change also occurs. Both are tempered by ongoing experience on the field of battle and the rituals in which the neophyte must participate. The nature of such rites varies enormously from one chapter to the next. Whether he is crippled upon the battlefield, or found spiritually wanting during a particularly exacting ritual, a neophyte may find himself cast out, his future with the chapter curtailed. In some instances, the neophyte may transgress one of the many articles of chapter law. An injury at war may prove preferable to the punishment. Many possible fates await those who fall by the wayside in this manner. Most are mind scrubbed and become chapter serfs, manservants, and menials. The less fortunate are transformed into living cybernetic servitors, mindless biomechanical automatons who exist only to assist the chapter's tech marines in the operation of heavy and frequently dangerous machinery. The gene seed of an Astartes is the foreign genetic material originally engineered using one of the Primarch's genomes as a foundation. The gene seed develops into the special organs that are then implanted into a potential Space Marine's body. These gene seed organs are responsible for most of a Space Marine's physical enhancements over baseline human capability. All Space Marine gene seed was originally cultivated by the Emperor himself from the DNA of the Emperor's 20 genetically engineered sons, each son being the Primarch of one of the 20 Space Marine legions of the first founding, and is a rare and precious resource for the Space Marines of the Imperium, even in death. The biotechnology necessary to create new gene seed was long forgotten or lost to humanity in the millennia before the creation of the Primaris Space Marines. Therefore, it had to be cultivated after being retrieved from dead or dying Astartes warriors and returned to the chapter's apothecaries, who oversaw the creation of new Astartes from the chapter's raw recruits. The gene seed is the very essence of a Space Marine chapter, and it carries each of the characteristics that are particularly unique to a given chapter, be they mental, physical, spiritual, or martial. Unfortunately, Space Marine gene seed is vulnerable to mutations over time, which can phenotypically manifest in various ways. In addition, there are various genetic flaws that have developed in the gene seed, the majority of which derive from the particularities of each Primarch's genetic code. It is these mutations that led to the emergence of the flaws in the Blood Angel's gene seed, specifically their susceptibility to the conditions known as the Black Rage and the Red Thirst, the Mark of the Wolfen for the Space Wolves, or the rapidly increasing rate of mutation that afflicted the Renegade Soul Drinkers, before it was destroyed and reconstituted by Primaris Marines. During the recruitment and enhancement process, some aspirants may not survive the rigors of training and the later medical treatments one must undergo to become a full-fledged battle brother of the chapter. First and foremost, a potential Space Marine recruit must be male, as the gene seed and the developing Space Marine organs are compatible only with the human male's hormonal balance and genetics. Trying to implant a woman with Space Marine gene seed would result only in a painful, agonizing death. The three following requirements also apply. Space Marine aspirants must be adolescents or very young adults, as the implants must be able to coordinate with a human male's natural growth hormones during adolescence to stimulate the growth and development of the various unique physiological features of a Space Marine. In specific terms, the recruit must be about 16 Terran years of age, although the process has been documented to still work in recruits as old as 20, as long as they have not yet reached their full adult growth. Much like a blood transfusion or organ transplant, there must be immunogenetic compatibility between the recruit and the implants. Otherwise, organ failure may result, causing the recruit to die or simply degenerate into a state of madness as their own tissues come under autoimmune attack. The mental state of a potential space marine must also be susceptible to the various training and psycho-conditioning regimes of the chapter and cannot already be tainted by the ruinous powers of chaos. These three main criteria bar all except a minuscule percentage of human males within the Imperium of Man from becoming Space Marines. If all the tests prove successful, the Space Marine recruit transforms from a neophyte into a Scout Marine, or even a full initiate, depending on the chapter's individual organisation. The recruit is then taken to live at the chapter's fortress monastery, where he is instructed in the ways of battle and taught the values and history of the chapter. At this stage, organ implantation, psycho-conditioning, and physical training begin. Each step in this stage has its own dangers, ensuring that only the truly worthy initiates become Space Marines. After several standard years of training, conditioning, and implantation surgeries, the initiate becomes a true Astartes, undergoes his rites of fire in his first combat action, and becomes a true battle brother of his chapter. Even once the organs are implanted, they are generally inactive or useless without associated training, hypnotherapy, and chemical treatment. 19 genetically engineered organs grown from the chapter's gene seed are implanted in a firstborn Space Marine neophyte's body to further bolster his combat and survival ability should he live to become a full battle brother and initiate of the chapter. Many of these organs are cultured in vitro from the gene seed, whilst others require that the gene seed be injected into the aspirant's body and then grow into a new organ using the implantee's own physiological processes. All Space Marine chapters use the gene seed organs to unleash and control the metabolic processes that transform an ordinary mortal into a Space Marine. The gene seed itself is encoded with all the genetic information needed to reshape ordinary human cell clusters into the special organs Space Marines possess in those instances where they are not directly implanted after being cultured outside the body. The gene seed contains genetically engineered viral machines which rebuild the male human body according to the biological template contained within it and created by the Emperor. However, even from the beginning of the Astartes' existence, there was never a set way to activate these transformative functions of the gene seed. During the first founding of the 30th millennium, when the Space Marine legions were first created, the process was still highly experimental, and many different ways of controlling and managing the transformation from mortal into Astartes were tried. This led to the Space Wolves using the ritual known as blooding, the Imperial Fists using the process known as the Hand of Face, the White Scars conducting the Rites of the Risen Moon, and the Blood Angels using the ritual of insanguination. Each implant has a high margin of catastrophic metabolic failure and physiological rejection, and so only a small number of neophytes live to become initiates of the chapter and enter the 10th Company as Scout Marines. Many chapters have lost the knowledge needed to culture new versions of some of these implants, and therefore must ensure this gene seed is recovered from dead battle brothers. Amongst the crucial implants are the interface, better known as the black carapace, and the progenoid glands, without which a chapter would die out fairly quickly. The gene seed organs must be implanted into an adolescent human male for the process to have the greatest chance of success, no later than his 16th year, though it is medically possible to begin the process as late as 18 standard years of age before full growth has been reached in the early 20s. However, a gene seed organ implantation procedure done at this late stage in the boy's growth will as likely kill him as not. In general, most Space Marine chapters prefer to begin the process sometime between the ages of 10 and 14 Terran years. The full list of 19 gene seed organs, presented in the order in which they must be implanted within a firstborn Space Marine neophyte, is as follows. Secondary heart, the maintainer. This is the first and least difficult implant to install. The secondary heart increases blood supply and pumping capacity and is capable of taking over entirely should the primary heart fail. It may also pump steroids and adrenaline into the first primary heart to give the Astartes an extra rush of energy on the battlefield. Os Medulla, the Iron Heart. This implant strengthens and greatly accelerates the growth of the skeleton of a space marine by inducing his bones to absorb a ceramic-based mineral administered in every Astartes neophyte's diet. Within 2 standard years after the surgery, the Space Marine skeleton will be larger and exponentially stronger than a normal man's, with growth having topped out at around 7.5 feet in height with an equivalent amount of skeletal-muscular mass. An Astartes ribcage will also be fused into a solid bone plate to provide greater protection from injury for the internal organs. Biscopia, the Forge of Strength. Implanted into the chest cavity, this implant massively bolsters skeletal-muscular development and muscle fiber density throughout the Astartes body to increase physical strength by unleashing a wave of human growth hormones. This gene seed organ is commonly implanted at the same time as the os medulla, since it is necessary to successfully regulate the os medulla's hormonal secretions. Hemastamen, the blood maker. Implanted into a main blood vessel like the aorta, femoral artery, or the vena cava, the hemastamen alters an Astartes blood's biochemical composition to carry oxygen and nutrients more efficiently. The actions of the hemastamen turn a space marine's blood a brighter shade of red than that of normal humans because of its greatly increased oxygen carrying capacity. It also acts to biochemically regulate the actions of the second and third gene seed implants, the os medulla and biscopia. Lariman's organ, the healer. Shaped like the human liver, but only the size of a golf ball, this gene seed organ is placed within the chest cavity and manufactures the synthetic biological cells, known as Lariman cells. These biosynthetic cells serve the same physiological purpose for an Astartes as the normal human body's platelets, serving to clot the blood lost from wounds, but they act faster, more efficiently, and more effectively. When a space marine is wounded and incurs blood loss, Lariman cells are released by his circulatory system, attached to the body's normal leukocytes, white blood cells. At the site of the injury, they form scar tissue in a matter of seconds, effectively preventing massive blood loss and infection of the wound. The action of this organ is one of the reasons that the Space Marines are seen as nearly invincible and so difficult to kill despite the terrible wounds they sometimes endure. Catalepsin node, the unsleeping. Implanted into the back of the cerebrum, this implant allows a Space Marine to avoid sleep, instead entering an almost comatose trance where their minds recharge. It also allows one half of the brain to rest while the other hemisphere remains alert, thus removing the need for the unconsciousness required by normal sleep. The longest any Space Marine has ever been on active combat duty without rest is 328 hours, achieved by a squad of the Crimson Fist's kill team during the battle against the Orcs for Rin's world. Preomner, the neutralizer. The preomner is essentially an organic decontamination chamber that is implanted inside the chest cavity and connected to the digestive system, above the original stomach, so that no actual digestion occurs in the preomner. It is capable of biochemically analysing ingested materials and neutralising most known biochemical and inorganic toxins. The preomner enables the Astartes to eat normally inedible substances and resist any poisons he may ingest. Omophagia, the remembrancer. Implanted into the upper spinal cord so that it becomes a component of the central nervous system, this organ is designed to absorb information and any DNA, RNA, or protein sequences related to experience or memory. This enables the Space Marine to gain information, in a survival or tactical sense, simply by eating an animal indigenous to an alien world and then experiencing some of what that creature did before its death. Over time, mutations in this implant's gene seed have given some chapters an unnatural craving for blood or flesh. Multi-lung, the imbiber. The multi-lung is a third lung implanted into an Astartes' pulmonary and circulatory systems in the chest cavity that is able to absorb oxygen from environments usually too poor in oxygen to allow normal human respiratory functioning. Breathing is accomplished through a sphincter implanted into the trachea, allowing all 3 lungs to be used at full capacity. In toxic environments, a similar muscle closes off the normal lungs. Thus, oxygen is absorbed exclusively by the multi-lung, which then filters out the poisonous or toxic elements. Oculobe, the eye of vengeance. Essentially, the oculobe is a gene seed organ that enhances an Astartes' eyesight after being implanted along the optic nerve and connected to the retina, granting him exceptional vision and the ability to see normally in a low light environment. Lyman's ear, the sentinel. This gene seed organ implant renders a Space Marine immune to dizziness and motion-induced nausea, and enables an Astartes to consciously filter out white noise or resist other sonic attacks. Susan membrane, the hibernator. This implant allows a Space Marine to enter a catatonic or suspended animation state, and is implanted within the brain near the pituitary gland as a part of the body's endocrine system. It can allow a mortally wounded Astartes to survive his injuries and bring the metabolism to a standstill until he can receive full medical care. Only the appropriate chemical therapy or hypnotic autosuggestion can revive a Space Marine from this state. The longest recorded period for this form of hibernation was endured by Battle Brother Silas of the Dark Angels chapter, who was in Susan hibernation for 567 standard years. Melanochrome. Linked into the endocrine system via the lymphatic system, this gene seed organ alters the pigment cells in the skin, which allows the Astartes skin to shield him from otherwise dangerous levels of radiation and heat. Different levels of radiation cause variations of skin colour in different chapters due to mutations in the melanochrome organ's gene seed. This can be related to the unusually pale skin of the Blood Angels and their successor chapters, and the dark black skin and red eyes of the Salamanders. Oolitic kidney, the purifier. This gene seed organ works in conjunction with the preomnor, filtering the blood to remove toxins that have been ingested or breathed into the body. However, this detoxification process renders the Astartes unconscious once it begins, so it can be very dangerous if required during combat. Under normal circumstances, the oolitic kidney also acts as a regulatory organ for the Astartes' physiology, maintaining the efficient action of the Space Marine's advanced circulatory system and the proper functioning of his other organs, implanted or otherwise. Neuroglottis, the devourer. This gene seed organ implanted in the mouth allows an Astartes to biochemically assess a wide variety of things simply by taste or smell, biochemically testing various objects for toxicity and nutritional content, essentially determining if the substance is edible or poisonous. From poisons to chemicals to animals, a Space Marine can even track his quarry by taste or smell alone, much like the average canine bred for tracking. Mucranoid, the weaver. This gene seed organ is implanted within the central nervous system and responds to specific chemical stimuli in the environment, causing the Space Marine to secrete a waxy protein substance similar to mucus through his pores that seals his skin. The gland's operations must first be activated by an external chemical treatment, usually self-administered, before it will activate. Space Marines are cocooned in this way before they enter suspended animation, and the process can even protect them from the harshness of the vacuum and other extremes of temperature, particularly deeply frigid environments. Becher's gland, the poison bite, actually consisting of two separate glands implanted into multiple locations inside an Astartes' mouth, including the inside of the lower lip, in the salivary glands, or in the hard palate. These two glands work in tandem to transform a Space Marine's saliva into a corrosive, blinding acid when consciously triggered. An Astartes trapped behind iron bars, for example, would be able to chew his way out given a few hours. These implants' more common use is to aid in the digestion of unusually difficult or impossible things to digest, such as cellulose. In the gene seed of several Primarchs, like that of Rogel Dorn, this organ has atrophied and is no longer as effective, or has simply ceased to function entirely in the Astartes of the chapters that use those Primarchs' gene seed. Progenoid glands, the gene seeds. Implanted into both the neck and the chest cavity, these reproductive glands serve to collect, gestate, and maintain the gene seed from a Space Marine's body, and to safeguard it for the continuity of a chapter. These organs hormonally respond to the presence of the other Astartes gene seed implants in the body by creating germ cells with DNA identical to that of those implants through a process very similar to cellular mitosis. These germ cells grow and are stored in the progenoid organs, much like sperm cells or egg cells are stored in the testes and ovaries of normal men and women. When properly cultured by the apothecaries of a Space Marine chapter, these germ cells can be gestated into each of the 19 gene seed organs needed to create a new Space Marine. Thus, for most Astartes, their progenoid glands represent the only form of reproduction they will ever know, though the DNA passed on will be that of their Primarch, not their own. The neck gland can be removed after 5 years, and the chest gland after 10 years. Both are then used to create new gene seed organs for the development of the next generation of Space Marines. The black carapace, interface. the last and possibly most important of all gene seed implants. This neuroreactive, fibrous organic material is implanted directly under the skin in the chest area of the hardened and shell-like ribcage of the Astartes neophyte. Invasive fibre bundles that serve as neuron connectors then grow inward from the implant and interlink with the Space Marine's central nervous system. Points pre-cut into the carapace before its implantation by the apothecary are effectively neural connection points, allowing an Astartes to directly interface his central nervous system with his suit of power armor's machine spirit so that the suit can provide enhanced protection and combat maneuverability, unavailable to an unaltered human wearing the same armor. Throughout the implantation process, a Space Marine neophyte must undergo multiple regimens of chemical and hypnotherapy treatments in order for the implanted organs to develop normally and function properly so that they integrate without mishap into the new Astartes physiology. Too many neophytes have been lost during the implantation process, as their bodies proved critically unable to meet the new biochemical and hormonal stress being placed upon them. For these unlucky individuals, the only recourse is usually euthanasia, or being reduced to a mindless cybernetic servitor who can still prove to be of at least marginal use to the chapter. The full course of implantation surgeries begins under ideal conditions between the ages of 10 to 14 Terran years as outlined. The secondary heart, osmodula and biscopia, are implanted, with the osmodula and the biscopia usually being implanted during the same surgical procedure. The hemistamen and the Laramens organ are implanted. This surgery can be difficult for neophytes at the older end of this age range, who have less time to recover from the previous surgeries and the effects of the implants upon their rapidly growing adolescent bodies. Once the catalepsin node is implanted at the 6th stage of the process, the neophyte begins his hypnotherapy conditioning in the device known as a hypnomat. The preomnor, omophagia, and multilung are all implanted within the neophyte simultaneously in the same surgical procedure, sometime during this age range, but after the catalepsin node has been implanted and hypnotherapy has already begun. The oculobe, Lyman's ear, and the Susan membrane can also be implanted at any time during this age range, also usually during the same surgical procedure. The melanochrome, oolitic kidney, and neuroglottis are ideally implanted during this age range, all during the same surgical procedure. The remaining gene seed implants, the mucranoid, Becher's gland, progenoid glands, and the black carapace, are implanted in that order at any time between the ages of 16 to 18 standard years. The idea is to be able to introduce a neophyte into a chapter's company of scout marines by the time his adult growth has been reached, usually around 18 years of age, though some neophytes have become scouts as early as the age of 16 if their implantation process began at the young end of the age ranges given here. In addition to the extensive implantation process for the gene seed organs, both firstborn and Primaris neophytes undergo chemical treatment, psychological conditioning, and subconscious hypnotherapy, all the while spending every waking solar hour honing their combat skills with ceaseless combat training. Until their acceptance as a full initiate and battle brother of their chapter, a neophyte must submit to constant tests and examinations by the chapter apothecaries. The newly implanted organs must be monitored very carefully, imbalances corrected, and any sign of corrupt or deviant development treated. This chemical treatment is reduced after completion of the initiation process, but it never ends. Space Marines undergo periodic drug treatment for the rest of their lives in order to maintain a stable metabolism. To this end, Space Marine power armor contains extensive physiological monitoring and drug dispensation equipment. As the super enhanced body grows, the recipient of the gene seed organs must learn how to use his new skills. Some of the implants, specifically the catalespia nodule and oculobe, can only function once correct hypnotherapy has been administered. Hypnotherapy is not always as effective as chemical treatment, but it can have substantial results. If a Space Marine can be taught how to control his own metabolism, his dependence on drugs is lessened. The process is undertaken in a machine called a hypnomat. Space Marines are placed in a state of hypnosis and subjected to visual and oral images in order to awaken their minds to their unconscious metabolic processes. A Space Marine is more than just a human being with extraordinary powers. Just as their bodies receive 19 or 22 separate gene seed implants, so their minds are altered to release the latent powers that lie within all human minds. and these are not the psychic powers of the warp, but the intrinsic capabilities of every human brain. These mental powers are, if anything, more extraordinary than even the physical powers endowed by the gene seed implants. For example, a space marine can control his senses and nervous system to a remarkable degree, and can consequently endure pain that would kill a normal man. A space marine can also think and react at lightning speeds. Memory training is an important part of the Astartes' psycho-indoctrination as well, and some space marines develop photographic memories in the course of their psycho-conditioning and hypnotherapy. Space marines, of course, vary in intelligence as do other men, and their individual mental abilities vary to some degree as their implants do not reshape their core neural architecture and psyches, though the hypnotherapy does act to smooth out many personality quirks. This indoctrination also includes psychological conditioning, which is intended to reinforce a space marine's respect for authority and his willingness to follow orders regardless of his own desires, as well as to harden his mind to the corruptive temptations offered by chaos. It is no exaggeration to say that many Astartes truly no longer know fear. At the end of this process, if all goes well, an adolescent human male will have been transformed into a superhuman Astartes. Yet, in many ways, he will no longer truly be human, having sacrificed his own humanity so that he might protect that of others. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. And if you're looking for something cool for yourself and also help support me and the channel, you can check out our store for some merch. Thank you all and hope to see you in the next video.